Today, we'll preview the upcoming race weekend at Phoenix, first time hosting the championship round in NASCAR, plus an inside look at the NASCAR playoff. How do we get here, and how should we go forward with the playoff format? And breaking news from MotoGP, we'll discuss the latest, including a penalty for Yamaha and how this affects the championship right here on Grid Tonight. Welcome to Grid Tonight, your weekly motorsports news program. Joe Samaniego here and Kobe Lambeth from the Podium Finish. We invite everyone to join us in the chat room. We'll love to chat car racing, auto racing. Want to hear your questions? Kobe and I will try our best to answer. And of course, definitely just a break. We know it's been a very busy week, a lot going on. We are definitely thinking of everyone in Europe, especially as they're approaching some shutdowns. And of course, here in the United States, unprecedented election going on, has a lot of people on edge. But we're here to bring you everything motorsports, and we want to take this time. Let's talk about car racing, and let's talk about the big news that came from MotoGP.
Yeah, huge news. This morning, reports surfaced that MotoGP was investigating Yamaha teams after an unapproved engine was used in Jerez, side of Fabio Quartararo's 2 wins this season. The engine change was not approved and didn't seek the unanimous approval of from other manufacturers, as Autosport reported. Today, the FIM rule indicates that Yamaha failed to respect the protocol due to an internal oversight and docked the constructor double the points they earned from Fabio Quartararo's victory in Jerez. And this is a 50-point loss in the constructor standings, dropping them from first to third with 158 points to new leader Ducati, and only 3 races remaining. And the Yamaha factory team docked 20 points. Petronas Yamaha team of Quartararo and Morbidelli docked 37 points. No rider points were docked. Joe, how does this play into the 2020 MotoGP season, especially the championship overall?
This is huge. This is really a big potential change in the championship. What we are seeing essentially has decided the Constructors' Championship, and it's not going to be Yamaha. Yamaha, 3 races left, 158 points. There's no way they could get that amount of points and contend. And this was a big break because Honda's out of it this year. Honda, without Marc Marquez, they're struggling. With everything going on this year for MotoGP, it just seems like this is just the latest twist in the 2020 season. I know Kyle Busch has said it's 2020, especially if you're in MotoGP. This is just the newest twist in this 2020 year. Of course, as you mentioned, the riders, their points have not been affected, so this does not affect the Riders' Championship. Mir still has a 25-point lead over the top 5 currently. Of course, for those not familiar, a win in MotoGP is 25 points, so one of those drivers are within reach of the points, and it's just fascinating how this 2020 season for MotoGP has developed. And this season, especially now with the Yamaha penalty, I do think this is going to overshadow, especially when it comes to the Constructors' Championship.
Yeah, definitely. It may overshadow it. And Yamaha was the manufacturer with the most wins, and now Valentino Rossi is possibly out again with COVID-19. Do you think, with Valentino Rossi with 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 the COVID-19 restrictions and with oh my gosh, sorry guys, it's been a long week. Lost my train of thought there, but what I'm trying to say is, Joe, do you think that this entire situation has ruined their entire season?
This essentially has put a black cloud on the season. With the old saying, when it rains, it pours. For Yamaha, their season just went really, I think, as you said, ruined. Here was their opportunity to beat Honda, get the Constructors' Championship, do good things this year in 2020. Now, they're third, 158 points out of it. Ducati is ahead of them. Ducati, of course, this year, they're looking pretty good with Jack Miller having good runs. Andrea Dovizioso, who had the points lead for a while, and he's leaving the team at the end of the year. Still no clue where he's going next year. Now they're in the championship lead. For Yamaha, I think this is really just makes it where 2020, okay, we just got to accept what we could do. try to get one of our riders to beat Mir and the Suzuki team for the Riders Championship, start planning for 2021, and let's put 2020 behind us.
Yeah, definitely. It was like really crazy. I remember when the story came out this morning. I mean, my jaws dropped because I'm thinking, oh my goodness, after everything that's happened this season for them, now basically going down the drain with only a few races remaining in the season, and considering how successful they they were this season, this is a massive blow to their entire operation. Yeah, and next gonna look at some NASCAR news reflecting on what happened last weekend at Martinsville Speedway in the Xfinity 500. And on Monday afternoon, it was confirmed that NASCAR was looking into potential team orders during the closing laps of the Xfinity 500 at Martinsville Speedway. And this occurred when Denny Hamlin was racing Eric Jones, and Eric Jones was told on the radio not to pass Denny Hamlin because at the time Denny was in a vulnerable position. And there was also some speculation that a penalty what what occurred, similar to what we saw with Spingate, Clint Boyer, and Michael Walter Racing, or last year at Homestead when with the people with the charter situation, I believe. And in the end, there was not a penalty this time. Joe, do you agree with the no penalty call?
I do agree with the no penalty call. In the case of Spingate, we saw Clint Boyer spin the vehicle around. That essentially changed the outcome of the race with that caution flag. One of the big things, of course, Homestead last year, we saw teams deliberately bring their vehicles into the pit road, into the garage area, citing a mechanical failure to help another team. What happened at Martinsville? Denny Hamlin still raced hard to get the position he was at. We saw essentially Eric Jones. Looks like we have been told, do not pass. At what point is that affecting the outcome to the point where NASCAR feels they're manipulating the outcome? Yes, it has affected the outcome of those two, but not the complex, big picture, the entire race. Had it been something where I think if Eric Jones was to cause a caution to put Denny Hamlin in a better shot to win, then we would have seen NASCAR step in. But for this call, I hate to say it, team orders, that's sometimes just a part of motorsports.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And you know better than anyone, Joe. I don't like team orders at all. I don't like to see it in any series. But unfortunately, that's just a part of the game. And I do agree with NASCAR with no penalty here. I don't think that was. I don't even think it should have even been an investigation or it needed to be a penalty. If it was a situation where Eric Jones was told on the radio, be like, hey, you want to scratch that itch on your arm? Then you see him spin out, especially like if Danny was on the outside looking in, and then if Eric Jones just spun out, and it looked like it was intentional, then I think there'd be a penalty because that would be manipulating the outcome, but nothing foul happened at all, and I do agree with NASCAR's call to not penalize them because it really didn't make any sense in the first place. And on the Grid Live pre-race show, we discussed the potential of team orders and how it occurs less often in NASCAR in comparison to Formula One and other disciplines around the world. And we saw Kyle Busch essentially deny Martin Truex Jr. a shot at the championship four by winning Texas. Why does it appear at Martinsville team orders came into play this time?
One of the big things, Martinsville, this was a championship moment for that 11 team and Joe Gibbs Racing and Toyota. Imagine if Eric Jones had passed Denny Hamlin and if Kevin Harvick got around Kyle Busch and didn't wreck. If there was no Toyota in Homestead competing for the championship, no Joe Gibbs Racing team in the Final Four, that would be a
Mhm.
huge loss for the team. At this point, knowing that Denny Hamlin was essentially Toyota's last real chance at being in the championship four, this is where team orders had to come in. Yes, they could have been team orders in Texas to say, hey, Martin Truex is faster than you. Got the picture? That could have assured two of them. But in NASCAR, I think that would have been something where NASCAR will really frown upon, especially if it was more blatant, where it looked like team orders manipulated the outcome of that race. But in this situation, you have a championship on the line. If that team order didn't take place and Denny Hamlin misses the championship four, a lot of people will be asking, how could they allow a teammate to cost another person and the organization, our sponsor, and Toyota any shot at a championship?
And Joe, going back to what I was talking about with Kyle Busch denying Martin Truex Jr. A chance to win in the that was my bad. I meant when Kyle Busch denied Martin Truex Jr. A shot in the Final Four at Phoenix. When looking at that situation, do you think it would have been a wise idea for Joe Gibbs Racing to say Kyle, we need to get Martin in the championship four, so we want you to give him the win. I'm actually really glad we didn't see those team orders. Do you think that's something that could have come into play at that time?
Hindsight 2020, of course, ironically, hindsight 2020, it could have been something where if you wanted to have two Toyotas in there, a 50% chance a Toyota will come out with the championship, you could have done that. But here's the thing, Kyle Busch hadn't won a race all year long. If that streak of consecutive wins doesn't materialize, it seemed Kyle Busch heart was really into keeping that streak going. I think it would have been really demoralizing for Kyle Busch, for the M&M's 18 team, to get those team orders, allow Martin Truex to win. How would they recover? I think we'll be talking a lot about Texas of was this the right call if that was to happen after Texas. So even though right now it may have seemed that could have been a better choice to ensure you have two vehicles, just the fact that in racing, especially Truex, he could have won at Martinsville, and I think a lot of people are anticipating him to win. He cost himself the win with that tire issue that essentially eliminated any shot, and then that really put Joe Gibbs in a bad situation where Denny Hamlin at one point was tied with Kevin Harvick and Brad Keselowski for that final spot, and it just all manifested to what we saw with Eric Jones being told, "Don't pass."
Yeah, and we know team orders are seen in almost every racing series across the globe. Mostly allowed because it is hard to monitor and enforce. Formula One even tried to ban it, but gave up after teams started using code words and other tactics. So even if you try to ban team orders, is not going to happen at all. And is team orders a part of racing? Just something we just have to accept. And do you think we'll see it more in NASCAR in the future?
Team orders are a part of motorsports, and I do think fans have to unfortunately accept the fact when you have motorsports, especially this level, multi-million dollar deals with sponsors, bonuses for advancing in the playoffs, advancing to the championship bonuses, your sponsorships is on the line, your jobs are on the line. Team orders, a lot of times will come in to play because it's for what's best for the team overall. May not be great for the driver. I mean, for Eric Jones, he probably feels a bit demoralized to be told, don't pass Denny. He's a racer. He wants to pass every position. And of course, he wants to make the case that you're making a mistake by letting me go. And of course, after RPM, he still wants to go either with another team or probably continue building RPM. So he has to take care of himself. When it comes to especially NASCAR and team orders, I do think this is going to be something that might be growing more and more, especially if we're going to keep having these alliances, these technical alliances, and of course, 4 to 5 car teams all over racing for position. It's just part of the sport, and unfortunately, the way it goes in motorsports. I mean, we've seen it in Formula One. It was very hard to police and enforce. I think NASCAR, best thing to do was to not penalize because in this situation, it was just part of simply the bigger picture, the championship battle at hand.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And although I don't agree with team orders, like you said, it's just a part of racing. That's just something we're gonna have to accept. Especially, I'm sure if I was a car owner and my non-playoff driver was leading, and then the other driver who was running second, who also my driver, not in position to win for a championship. I'm sure if I wanted a chance to go for the championship, I'd probably be in the position to be like, hey, we need to let so and so win, so we have a chance to bring home a hardware to the organization. So from that perspective, in a way, although I don't agree with it, as an outsider looking in, I do see it from the perspective of there are team orders in place because you want to be able to maximize every opportunity you get. Because if you're second and your rivals in first, they're obviously not going to pull over and let you go.
Martinsville Speedway has been part of the NASCAR Cup Series since the first season in 1948. Sunday, it hosted the cutoff race in the NASCAR playoffs for the first time in track history. While many has praised the on-track action, the playoffs has divided fans and caused serious discussion on the legitimacy of NASCAR Cup Series championships. But how do we get here? Why? And is there really another story to this? Is this really not the playoff format that's at fault, but Kevin Harvick failing to close the deal? In 1971, NASCAR introduced a season-long point system to crown the NASCAR Winston Cup Series champion. This point system was designed to award consistency, ensuring drivers competed in every race and was rewarded for competing in every race and finishing every race. Several times, the driver that have won the most races did not win the championship. The last one was in 2003 when Ryan Newman won 8 races. Matt Kenseth won 1 race and the Winston Cup Series championship. But that was in 2003. We then started seeing new NASCAR president Brian France introduce his vision of the sport and introduce the Chase, a 10-race mini-season for the top 10 in the points. In that first year, Jeff Gordon started as the number 1 seed. Kurt Busch was the 7th seed, and Kurt Busch went on to win the championship. Without the Chase, Jeff Gordon would have been the champion, and Kurt Busch would have finished 4th, 247 points behind Jeff Gordon. Prior to 2004, all major motorsport series crowned their champions with a season-long point system. NASCAR ventured into a chase playoff format isn't just to set itself apart from other motorsport series, but to better compete in the United States sports industry. In the United States, NASCAR's competition for television time and viewers is against other major league sports such as the National Basketball Association, the National Football League, National Hockey League, and Major League Baseball. When you compare NASCAR to those series, all those series have a playoff system which creates extra excitement at the end of the season, whereas NASCAR, with a traditional point system as well as other motorsport series, usually have less viewer engagement and following by the end of the season. Brian France stated he wanted a Game 7 moment for NASCAR. Same time, competing was, of course, the big thing when it came to football and other series. And it wasn't just NASCAR making these changes. We saw other series, such as the National Hockey League, change their rules to increase scoring opportunities. Higher scoring games equals more exciting coverage on television. The National Football League and Major League Baseball have altered their playoff to allow more teams, more fans, more stadiums the opportunity to see a playoff football game, generate additional revenue for the teams and the league. So this is all part of a big competitive battle that NASCAR finds itself in along with other major sports in the United States. However, since the introduction of the NASCAR playoffs, there has been a lot of criticism about the playoff format. Many state that the winner of the championship, since the introduction of the playoff, isn't the best in the season. Of course, this year, Kevin Harvick, 9 wins, but he's not in the championship 4 race. So this raises the question, and we want to hear from you, the viewers. What do you think of the NASCAR playoffs? Is this a legitimate way to continue awarding a championship in NASCAR Premier's League? Or is this creating too much division, too much debate, and NASCAR needs to look into something new? Now, Kobe, when it comes to NASCAR, we are now 4 days past the Sunday Xfinity 500 at Martinsville. Do you believe the current NASCAR playoff system is a legitimate way to crown a champion?
Well, when you look at it this way, from an authentic standpoint, it's not a legitimate way to crown a champion because if you look at the point system without a playoffs format, Kevin Harvick would have wrapped up the championship a little while ago. So and that makes sense because Kevin Harvick's been the most dominant driver of the year, and unfortunately with the playoffs format, he's not going to be racing for a championship. I had Kevin Harvick as my lock to win Phoenix in the championship, and I still think he's going to win at Phoenix, but unfortunately, he's just not going to be able to win the championship. So, speaking from an authentic standpoint, I do not think it's a legitimate way to crown a champion. But as we know, as time moves on, it's sports and entertainment now. It's not just sport. It's sports and entertainment. And with this playoff format, it generates the type of entertainment to keep people tuned in and to generate those big time ratings. And especially at times you'll have what they call the I know people hate with the stick and ball comparisons, and I truly understand it. But in this situation, when you're looking at the sports and entertainment angle, you need to find a format where you can create those game 7 moments. And I believe we saw that at Martinsville with Kevin Harvick making that last ditch effort to try to take out Kyle Busch and to get that 1 point they needed, and end up losing several points when he ended up wrecking his car coming to the checker flag.
Yes. When it comes to getting a Game 7 moment, the type of excitement, especially in a playoff level, this system is delivering this. When it comes to a season long points championship, you bring up a good point. Kevin Harvick has the wins and has the consistency where if this was the same system used from 1971 to 2003, the championship would have been wrapped up. Kevin Harvick would be your 2020 Cup Series champion. However, several of the models, especially as we've seen, especially with the 2004 format of the Chase playoffs and beyond, has shown other drivers such as Chase Elliott, Alex Bowman would be in contention for that championship, and Harvick was a little lower down. So it's definitely one of those cases where if you were to look at the overall big picture, yes, Kevin Harvick would be the champion. But it's definitely just a case where with this format, it makes it where in the playoffs, anything could happen. And if you're not good, in this case for Kevin Harvick for 3 straight weeks, no matter how many playoff points, you're going to still be in trouble. Now, one of the big things, of course, is we've seen people suggest let's return back to the 2004 to the 2014 model. Of course, you didn't have playoff resets. It was a lot of times the top 10 points were reset at the beginning of the Chase playoffs, some bonus points. At one point, we had 2 wild cards, the drivers with the most win get in. We also seen some people suggest a separate point system for the playoff drivers only. So the highest finishing driver gets a set amount of points, the last driver gets a lower amount, but it's not the big difference between one playoff driver, the rest of the non-playoff fields, and then the next highest. And then we even seen some suggest that in the playoffs, wins are not automatic entries into the next round. Kobe, should there be any adjustment made to the playoffs, or do you feel like these are just all reactionary responses to what happened on Sunday?
I don't know, Joe. I mean, it's not my call at all. But like I said, when you look at where we are right now as a society in the sports and entertainment world, this is an entertainment business, and if you're gonna go and if you're gonna have a 100% authentic product out there, like it was in the past, with the original point system and all of that, then you're probably not going to be able to to attract a big audience. Especially like I mentioned, Kevin Harvick would have like over a 140, 150 point lead, I believe, if it was under the system without stage points or whatever, and without all of the resets going on. I don't think anybody would really be well, the hardcore NASCAR fans would definitely watch. But as far as any people who don't really keep up with NASCAR all the time, with the championship wrapped up, I wouldn't really see a reason for them to even want to bother watching Phoenix if that was the case. So I think with this current format, as I'm definitely not offended. I just think when you're looking at this from a business perspective, that this playoff format is what is it's going to be here for many years to come, and people just probably going to have to just accept that.
It'll be here for a while. I think it might be just permanent now because, as you bring up, when it comes to a business standpoint, this ensures excitement at the final race of the season. Prior to the chase, I still remember being an avid NASCAR fan during the Winston Cup era. I would still be excited for the entire season. I'll watch the last race because I enjoyed NASCAR racing that much. Same with Formula One. Formula One, of course, a lot of times the championship was well decided before the last race. Sometimes the same with IndyCar as well. The big thing, though, the other sports, By the end of their season, it gets more exciting to the point of the NBA championship, the Super Bowl, the World Series. NASCAR, of course, is the complete opposite. Their big race, the beginning of the year. What do we do to keep everyone interested in NASCAR at the end of the year? I do think a lot of these reactions on we should change it, we should modify it is just reactionary. Overall, I do feel this is a good product that NASCAR has for the playoffs. And I personally believe that this is something that shouldn't really be changed, especially since we've seen so many changes. Now, this reminds me to something separate but still relatable. Back in 2008, Bernie Ecclestone suggested Formula One do away with the points and switch to just most wins, you get the championship. If we have so many fans talking about they want to see Kevin Harvick be in the championship contention, should this be a model that NASCAR may consider? Do away with points and just most wins, you get a championship?
I'm not really sure about that at all. I think NASCAR certainly is doing the best they can to make this an entertaining product. But however, in certain cases, a lot of drivers, people in the industry, and fans alike have pushed back on that, especially when you're looking at all the complaints about the 550 horsepower high downforce package. That yeah, I remember the last mile and a half race. They weren't pleased at all by that, and they really don't think that's the type of entertainment that they want to see. But looking at the points, keeps it going down to the wire. And I know in a more authentic battle, IndyCar series, it went down to the very last race of St. Pete between Joseph Newgarden and Scott Dixon, and that was without a playoff format.
Yeah, without a playoff format, they deliver a good championship, and we've seen good championship battles in NASCAR Cup Series. 1992, I was really young then, but the Hooters 500 really stood out. I'll never forget watching when Davey Allison and Ernie Irvin crashed on the front stretch, seeing the battle between Alan Kulwicki and Bill Elliott, and it really came down to the last lap, to one position. And of course, there was six drivers competing for the championship that day. With this format, of course, you got four drivers right now. The highest finishing is going to take the championship. The one thing I have with Bernie Ecclestone's idea back in 2008, especially in Formula One, the championship will be decided already. Lewis Hamilton has the wins. There's no way anyone's going to catch him. When it comes to NASCAR, especially if you have a season where you have the top three, the top four drivers all within one win of each other, this could be really exciting, and you'll get a championship that won the most races. But you go back to the same thing that NASCAR wanted before, and that was a championship race where everybody was tuned in. Kevin Harvick, he would have won this championship long ago once he got that ninth win. So definitely, it's a system where it's interesting in theory, but if you're NASCAR business minded, thinking about how do we generate excitement for the last race of the year, it wouldn't exactly be the big golden ticket. Missing out on the golden ticket, of course, Kevin Harvick not in the championship four. Online, we've seen a lot of folks saying how the four team choke. There has been memes comparing Kevin Harvick to even the Atlanta Falcons when they had a 28-3 Super Bowl lead. Started a round of 8, 40 points above the cut line, and Keselowski was 32 behind Kevin Harvick. After Kansas, he even has 33 points ahead of Keselowski. But then in Texas, 17 points. And then, of course, we all know Martinsville, what happened. He fell further behind. Do you feel Kevin Harvick and the 4 team choked in this round?
Well, things certainly didn't go his way at all, and it all started when he, got up into the wall at Texas, tried to fight back, and then everybody thought heading into Martinsville that Kevin Harvick was definitely a lot to go to Phoenix, and with everything that happened, it was a major surprise. I'm still, to be honest with you, Joe, I'm sitting here right now on a Thursday night at 8 p.m. Eastern time on the East Coast, and I'm still in shock and disbelief that Kevin Harvick is not racing for a championship.
Yeah, it's still a lot of shock, disbelief. I mean, we talked a little bit about in throughout the playoffs that Kevin Harvick needed a good race. to essentially, wrap up everything. He didn't have a good race in Texas, especially. He didn't have at all a good car in Martinsville. And earlier this year in Martinsville, he still had a top 15 finish. It just really makes me think this playoff makes it where you could be the number one seed. You could have 67 stage points, victory bonus points, whatever they're calling the stage points, playoff points, but you're not guaranteed to that final four. You still have to go out there, win, and perform because they had Kevin Harvick, one at Kansas, one position away, be a much different story in Martinsville.
Yeah, it would be a much different story. Now, looking at a different story, there was some news that come out this evening about the 2021 Cars late model tour, and with that series, they're going to be returning, to some of the what most well known short tracks like Hickory Motor Speedway, Greenville Pickens Speedway, Ace Speedway, Nashville Fairgrounds, Bristol Dominion, Motor Mile, South Boston, Florence Motor Speedway, tracks like that. But there was one track on that schedule that really caught my eye, and I was very surprised and stunned that they're gonna be running the late models there. And on March 6th to start the 2021 Cars Tour season, they're gonna be racing at Rockingham Speedway. Yes, I said it. Rockingham Speedway, and Rockingham Speedway's just been sitting there for several years now. No on track action. Joe, I want to hear your take. What are your thoughts that Rockingham Speedway we're finally going to see some actual big time short track racing at the Rock?
Rockingham Speedway is one of the tracks, if you grew up in the late 90s, early 2000s, you know that put on some good racing. It's not a cookie cutter track. In fact, for a while, it had two pit roads. They extended pit road around turns one and two to make it one pit road. The racing, multiple grooves, a lot of close racing, some of the most memorable finishes. Of course, Steve Park winning after we lost Dale Earnhardt Sr. Johnny Benson got his first win there. I do think it's unfortunate that NASCAR Cup Series no longer raced there. I remember when the Truck Series came back and they were racing there. That was really exciting. Casey Kane won that first race back. See Rockingham being used again, I think that is really exciting. And especially NASCAR, they want a more diverse track lineup. Here's an existing track that could be a potential host in the future.
Yeah. In past, people have been talking about about returning to these old tracks, and obviously North Woodsboro is so far gone. Definitely not coming back in my opinion, unless they decide to tear it down and rebuild it, which I don't see happening at all. And then we have Nazareth from the IndyCar side up up in Pennsylvania. That track, the last time I saw photos from that, it was horrific. So I think Nazareth is gone as well, but Rockingham is still in decent enough condition. You see the Cars late model tour is going there, so maybe if everything aligns perfectly, I'm wondering if we could maybe see NASCAR try to go back to Rockingham Speedway. I'm sure that will make a lot of fans really happy because you mentioned, Joe, that track is really special to a lot of people, special in a lot of people's hearts. And for me, I only got to see one race at Rockingham. I believe it was the very last race there. The when the trucks raced at Rockingham, and unfortunately didn't have a decent enough crowd to keep it on the schedule. But if in the future we see Rockham return for maybe a truck race, ARCA, or even Xfinity, or wishful thinking a Cup race. I don't see that happening right now, but just thinking in the future, if we're able to have Rockingham Speedway return to NASCAR, I really hope people will show up so we can keep it on the schedule permanently. And now looking at some of the championship four profiles, tonight we're only going to premiere the NASCAR Gander RV and Outdoors Truck Series and the NASCAR Xfinity Series on Grid Live on Saturday. We're going to do championship four profiles for the Cup Series, and starting with the NASCAR Gander RV and Outdoors Truck Series. We're going to start with driver number one, Sheldon Creed, who has 4 wins this season. Last year, he entered the series as the defendant ARCA Menard Series champion. In his rookie season in trucks, he had some growing pains and really started to come into his own at the end of the 2019 season. And in 2020, he started to break out, winning his first Truck Series race in a rain-shortened event at Kentucky Speedway, and then went on to hold off teammate Brett Moffitt at the Daytona Road Course and won Gateway and punched his ticket to finish to Phoenix by winning a couple of weeks ago at Texas. And Creed is from Alpine, California. And here's my question for you, Joe: has Sheldon Creed developed into the type of driver we saw win often in the Arkham Menard series?
I do see that. Arkham and Nars series, win the wins. I thought he would be definitely somebody to watch in the truck series. In the truck series, a little bit of a slow start, but of course, we've had a weird year considering the pandemic, shut down everything, unusual schedule, the road course. But definitely, he's been shining through. That rain shortened win, it was my thought was okay, he got his win, but it was a rain shortened race. Where will he get his next race? Well, Daytona road course. Okay, Daytona road course. Nobody has been there. Was that again just more being the best place, best time? Being a totally level field where the experience nobody had the experience at the truck series race there. And then of course Gateway, that's where I felt okay, now he's really showing through. And then Texas. Texas I feel that is the win where nobody could say you were lucky. You had to have a good handling truck in Texas, you had to have a fast truck in Texas, and he really I think earned that win to put himself in contention.
Yeah, Creed definitely earned that win, and I'm saying that he's really developing nicely. And recently, GMS Race announced he's going to return in 2021. So imagine what another year of experience can do. And Sheldon Creed go down, win the championship, return next year, get even more experience. He could put himself in position for a NASCAR Xfinity Series ride in 2022. And moving on to the next driver, one of the older drivers in this championship fight is Grant Enfinger. And Enfinger has 4 wins this season. He won the season opening race at Daytona. It was a thrilling photo finish between him and Jordan Anderson. And then Enfinger won at Atlanta, Richmond, and he picked up the latest win at Martinsville last weekend to secure his spot to race for a championship. And this is Grant Enfinger's fourth full season in the NASCAR Truck Series and his fourth with ThorSport Racing. And Enfinger is from Fairhope, Alabama. Can the 35-year-old ride the momentum from Martinsville into Phoenix?
He can ride the momentum. He has the equipment for Phoenix, and I see him as a championship contender. His experience there, I feel the pressure will not get to him. That pressure could get to a younger driver like Creed. So definitely, he is one. I would say probably the top two for the championship right now.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think this championship would mean a lot to Grant Enfinger. Mentioned 35 years old, and it sounds young, but nowadays when the drivers are having shorter careers, but I don't obviously don't know how much longer Grant Enfinger is gonna race. I think he's gonna continue to race at a high level for a very long time, and in this business is very dependent on sponsorship and all of that. And I do think that this is Grant Enfinger's best chance to win a championship. And it would not surprise me at all if he's the one walking away with the hardware. And the third driver in the championship four is Brett Moffitt, who is seeking his second championship in 3 years. He won the 2018 Truck Series title with Hattori Racing Enterprises, and now that he's in his second season with GMS. And during the pandemic shutdown, Moffitt actually broke not one but both of his legs in a dirt bike accident. Ended up having surgery, and he was able to recover without missing a single race. So Moffitt was really lucky. Was really lucky that we were shut down during this time, so he didn't take a hit at all in the points. Yeah, and it took him a while to get into rhythm, but finally got his first win of the season at Kansas Speedway. And it's actually been kind of a surprise not to see a multi-win season from Brett Moffitt. And Moffitt's from Grimes, Iowa. Moffitt won at Phoenix in his 2018 championship season. Can he do it again?
I do see the potential for doing it again, and he'll be the second driver out of my top two that I'll be looking at. Yes, one win. Not exactly what we've seen in the past where he gets multiple wins, but he has the experience. He's been in championship position before. He knows how to get the job done. And I see him, if I had to put between him and Elfing, I think he'll be the number one out of the top two you got to watch.
Yeah, definitely gonna keep an eye on Brett Moffitt. And another driver we're keeping an eye out on is Zane Smith, the youngest of the championship four at 21 years old. And last year, Zane ran a part-time schedule with JR Motorsports in the NASCAR Xfinity Series, and he was very impressive and consistent. And this year decided to go full times in the Truck Series with GMS Racing and looked incredibly decent from the start and kept building momentum throughout the season. And Zane Smith won two races at Michigan and Dover, and he's from Huntington Beach, California. Do you think Zane Smith, youngest driver in the championship for first full time season in the Truck Series, do you think he's the long shot to win this championship?
He is a long shot. I know first full time season, this makes it really hard. The big thing for him, I feel, especially you got two drivers that I have already talked about. They are clearly, I think, the top two when it comes to getting this championship. Big thing for Zane Smith. Go out there, have a good race. Focus on having a good race. Don't think about the championship. That could easily get into your head, make you second guess yourself, make you start thinking, let's try something different, something experimental. Don't start thinking about that unless for some reason you are deep back in the pack and you know the top three are ahead of you. What do you have to lose at that point? But just go focus on a good race and having a good run because this driver, especially, I think is going to have a lot of success next year and forward.
Yeah, yeah, and looking at this entire situation. I think with Zane Smith, he is a long shot, but I would not count him out at all when winning this championship because I mentioned he's been really impressive this season, and at times he doesn't look like a rookie at all. Looks like a seasoned veteran. And I do think that when Zane Smith comes back next year, he's going to be even better and probably is going to contend for the win more often than not. And final question to end the Truck Series section: who do you think is going to win the championship?
I'm going with Brett Moffitt. I feel he's going to come through, deliver, and get the championship. Who do you got?
I'm gonna go with Grant Enfinger. I think he's ready to show up in these big moments and finally gonna get that title.
It's going to be really exciting to see who gets the championship. It's going to be, of course, very big weekend for Phoenix overall. First time Phoenix is going to host the championship weekend for everybody. Now, Xfinity Series. Of course, their championship is coming up, and it's going to be really interesting to see which one of these drivers is going to get. We'll start with Chase Briscoe. 9 wins this season. This is by far his breakout season in the Xfinity Series. Moved up to Stewart Haas Racing Cup Series program next year, so he will not be back in the Xfinity Series. So this is his chance to get the championship and leave on a high note. In Phoenix, he finished sixth place this last go around. He is definitely a fan favorite and likely a sentimental favorite. We all know what he's been through personally. He's been very open about his personal life with the fans. The fans really have connected with him. He is from Mitchell, Indiana. Do you see him being the favorite for the championship?
Oh, absolutely. 9 wins. Wow, what a season for Chase Briscoe. And watching him persevere through all of the tough times that he's had, and his wife Marissa, sending my well wishes to them, hoping everything goes well. And Chase is he's just become a star this year in the Xfinity Series. He's certainly developed and come into his own as a driver, and I certainly think he's the overall favorite to win this championship. And if he doesn't win the championship, I'm sure him and his '98 team is going to be really disappointed.
I do see disappointment if him and the 98 team does not get a championship. They seem prime for the championship, but one of their big contenders, Austin Cindric, 5 wins this season. He will be back in the Xfinity Series next year. He got oval and road course wins this year. Again, a breakthrough season for him. He swept Kentucky, won Texas during the summer, followed by the two road courses of Road America and Daytona. With his return to Xfinity full times next year, that's going to be big to gain that experience because in 2022, when we get a brand new car, he'll be with Team Penske Cup Series and their technical alliance with the Wood brothers. So that's going to be really big for him. So definitely he wants to perform next year. But of course, getting a championship this year will be a really good statement to say, I'm here now. Let's make championship number 2 in 2021. He finished 8th place in Phoenix earlier this year. He is from Mooresville, North Carolina, with a mix of oval and road course wins. Has Austin Cindric finally developed into an all-around good race car driver?
Yes, he certainly has, and we all know when he first got into the NASCAR ladder system, or if that's what you want to call it, Austin Cindric was a road course ace, and he didn't really have a lot of experience on ovals. And as Austin Cindric he's really matured a lot as a driver in the past few seasons. I remember he jumped on the road courses and he was always a threat to win, and he's always a threat to win now on the road courses. But when he was on the ovals, when he first started, he wasn't really what a lot of people thought what you would call a contender. But as he's gotten more and more experience, Austin Cindric is really doing a lot better on the ovals, and I really do think that he's developed into an all-around driver now. He's a threat to win on the ovals and road courses now, and he's just getting better and better. And I think only a one more year of Xfinity experience next year is really going to help him when we get to the next gen car era in the NASCAR Cup Series.
Yeah, next year in the Xfinity Series will be really good for him, especially why go in the Cup Series, learn one car that's not going to be used afterwards, go in there 2022. I think that'll be a good year for any rookies to enter the Cup Series is 2022. Justin Allgaier, he is the oldest driver in the championship floor. He has 3 wins this season, Dover, and swept both races at Richmond. He will return back next year with JR Motorsports. He finished 13th at Phoenix. It is the worst out of the 4 playoff drivers that are still contending this upcoming weekend. Phoenix, however, is one of his best tracks, so that 13th place finish doesn't really reflect really well. He is from Riverton, Illinois. Going to a track like Phoenix, where he typically does strong, do you think this is a championship race that gives Allgaier a slight advantage this upcoming weekend?
Oh, definitely. I think Justin Allgaier is certainly going to be in the hunt for the Xfinity Championship. Phoenix is one of it was one of his better tracks on the schedule, and I think it suits him a lot better than Homestead, where we've seen him not perform to the type of level where perform on the type of level of what you'd expect of a driver in the championship for. But I think running at Phoenix, a track where he's really good at and won at, I do believe that he's going to be a contender that could end up stealing this away from the dominant Chase Briscoe or even Austin Cindric.
Yeah, I do see him being contender. He could really mix it up with Chase Briscoe, Austin Cindric. Definitely going to be a battle, but don't count out Justin Haley, the youngest out of the championship four. Became a household name after stunning the NASCAR Cup Series by winning the Daytona Pepsi 400 in 2019. Excuse me, Coke Zero 400. So used to the back in the Winston Cup era. 3 wins this year in the Xfinity Series. Definitely a breakthrough year for him and Colleague Racing. Strong in the super speedways. Of course, we've been talking about Colleague Racing in the super speedways, comparing them to the DEI team. Finished 5th place at Phoenix. That is the best out of the championship four coming into Phoenix. He's from Winamac, Indiana. Like Zane Smith in the Truck Series, do you think he is the long shot here to win the championship?
Yeah, Haley is definitely the long shot here. Haley's been doing really good on the super speedways, he's also been doing decent on tracks that are not super speedways. But what he's done at Daytona and Talladega this year, absolutely amazing. It seems like he might be one of the top restrictor plate racers in NASCAR, and assuming he goes to the cup level at some point, wonder if that will continue. But right now, he definitely seems like the guy to beat on the super speedways. But this weekend in Phoenix, not a super speedway. It's gonna be. I'm sure Colic Racing is going to throw everything they can at this car to try to make sure Haley can be in position to potentially steal this championship away. But but hey, you never know what could happen here. Yes, yes, Justin Haley's a long shot like Zane Smith, but with this format, if the other three have trouble and you're in position to capitalize, watch out.
Definitely watch out. Especially, you never know. What if 2 out of the 4 get in a big wreck and you're just all of a sudden the right place in the right time? When it comes to Phoenix, who do you see taking the championship, Kobe?
Uh, when looking at those lists of drivers, I'm gonna go with the safe bet and say Chase Briscoe's gonna get it.
I'm going to go with Austin Cindric. I think he has the momentum, the excitement of knowing his plans next year, being back. I really see him wanting to make it to where he could get a championship and hopefully one of his future Cup Series partners get a championship as well.
Yeah, definitely. And looking at our final talking point tonight for discussion, it's about Jimmy Johnson and the 7-time NASCAR Cup Series champion. preparing for his final race of his full time career. And recently in an interview with the New York Times, Jimmy mentioned the grind of the NASCAR schedule, 38 weeks of racing, what commitments away from the track to sponsors and to looking for sponsors. Also, in an interview with Sports Illustrated, Johnson was asked about coming back, and he mentioned that he wanted to drive cars with more power. And we all know that Jimmy's going to be going to the NTT IndyCar Series, racing with Chip Ganassi Racing, still going to drive the number 48 car over there with sponsorship from Carvana. And those Indy cars have a lot of power, and they're going to have even more power coming up in the future. Yeah, so definitely a lot to be excited about there. For drivers who love driving vehicles with more power. And Jimmy also cited that NASCAR is not moving in that direction. Do you think he's retiring from full time Cup racing due to the rules package?
I do see part of it becoming part of the rule package. I recall when this rule package was introduced, Brad Keselowski had said that a lot of times for the drivers, the most challenging area series of racing is where you get some of the best drivers. For Jimmy Johnson to say, hey, I'm not a huge fan of the direction NASCAR is going with less horsepower. He's definitely going to a series where there's more horsepower in those Indy cars. The car's way lighter, so it's going to be a bigger challenge. I do think there's just something where, when it comes down to it, it was a factor of where the direction the sport's going, as do you want to be part of the sport in this new direction as well?
Yeah, and I do think that's a part of it as well. The rules package, and it really makes me think about something Brad Keselowski said. I believe it might have been a year or two ago when he said it would be a shame when the best drivers would no longer want to come to NASCAR. They go to other places like IndyCar, World of Outlaws, short track racing, sports car racing, other forms of racing. But because it seems like the appeal of NASCAR might be fading to drivers out there. And when thinking about this, are these comments from Jimmy concerning in terms of NASCAR appeal nowadays?
I do see it in a way where it can be concerning, especially we've seen how with Cup Series racing, it had evolved. One of the big stories, of course, Jeff Gordon, he could have gone to Indy cars, he came to NASCAR. We've seen a lot of drivers come to NASCAR, including Danica Patrick, Dario Franchitti, Juan Pablo Montoya. NASCAR becomes a part where drivers feel like it's not so much of a challenge. This isn't the where I want to be. I'd rather go to IndyCar, Formula One, Europe. It could become an issue for NASCAR. With that said, though, there'll still be a group of drivers that want to compete in NASCAR. The Daytona 500 is still the Daytona 500. It's not going to be an IndyCar race. There's no other way you can win the Daytona 500 unless you're in the Cup Series. So I don't think it's going to be too big of a concern, but definitely when it comes to attracting drivers, it might be a little bit tricky. One thing though, we're going to have more road courses, so we might see still some of that intrigue of, hey, why not NASCAR? Let me enter NASCAR.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And looking back when NASCAR introduced the playoffs under Brian France, most drivers didn't participate in the final years of Bill France Jr.'s leadership. And Brian France has been out for a little while now, and now we have Jim France leading the charge. Do you think NASCAR is heading in the right direction under Jim France's leadership?
It's really interesting. We've seen how Big Bill France, of course, the Cup is named after him, led the sport from essentially just unorganized Southern sport into creating NASCAR and the first strictly stock now Cup Series. Bill France led it to become this big national thing. Brian France brought in his vision. He won a playoff series, new changes. And Jimmy Johnson started in 2002 towards the end of the Bill France Jr. era and really won those championships under Brian France's vision. Now here we are with Jim France. Of course, we still have the playoffs that Brian France introduced. It has changed drastically. In fact, we're seeing now some different leadership with both Steves in there in NASCAR. And I think this is just a case where the sport it is transitioning. 2022 is going to be a big transition. Who knows? Maybe we will see a change in the championship format. But definitely, I think it's a best way to put it this way. NASCAR is changing, and I think we're seeing as some of the older drivers that were part of the older era, late Winston Cup, Brian France, They're retiring, coming in, and we're ushering in some new drivers.
Yeah, definitely usher in new drivers. And it's really hard to tell if we're headed in the right direction long term, but hopefully when we get the next gen car in 2022, it'll be the right kind of car that will make the drivers, teams and fans happy. Hopefully the on-track product will be entertaining and people will love the next gen car more than they did the Gen 6 car. And now it's time for some quick takes.
Starting out quick takes, one of the big things, of course, that we got to report is comes from MotoGP. Garrett Gerloff has been named as the standby driver for Valentino Rossi. Rossi on Tuesday tested positive for COVID-19. He has missed the last two races. Gerloff raced in World Superbikes currently. Wednesday, Alexander Rossi was to take another COVID test. Still waiting for any updates on that. We, of course, definitely wish Rossi a speedy recovery. Wish him the best. In case he can't race, Gerloff will be there.
21 drivers tested at Barber Motorsports Park in Birmingham, Alabama on Monday, and Renus VK was fastest, followed by Colton Herta and Pato Ward round out the top three. Then the six-time champ Scott Dixon ninth, and Antonio Felix Acosta, most recent Formula E champion, with Ray Hall Letterman Lanigan was 12th. Joseph Newgarden, championship runner-up this year, 13th. Had Scott McLaughlin was in 19th, and then seven-time NASCAR Cup champion Jimmy Johnson last in 21st. And there will be an additional test coming up in the next few days at WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca.
Honda and Mario Andretti cleared the air in regards to a recent headline. There was a headline that essentially said that Honda had terminated Mario Andretti. Following that, Honda issued a statement that it was no longer sponsoring the fastest seat in sport, that is the two-seater Indy car, and that this was not Mario Andretti being terminated. In fact, Mario Andretti tweeted that this was false as well with the term fake news. Honda has been, of course, changing it in motorsports, including the departure of Formula One after 2021. And definitely, of course, it's unique how they have signed up for a long term engine deal with IndyCar. That will conclude today's program. We definitely want to thank you all for watching today's program. Be sure to become one of our Patreons. We'd love to have your support. With Patreon, we are very transparent with how your money is being spent. Investing in us will ensure future growth of the Grid Network, our presence around the track. Please like, subscribe, and comment. Let us know what you think about the video, the topics we hit today. Earlier today, we had Grid Girls. We encourage everyone to watch that. Life on the Grid, of course. We just had that air last Friday. You can find that on our YouTube channel. And of course, join us Saturday for Grid Live pre-race. We're going to be previewing the MotoGP and, of course, the NASCAR season finale. So it's definitely going to be a really fun and exciting weekend for everyone here. For Kobe Lambeth at the podium finish, I'm Joe Samniego. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you for tuning in. Enjoy the races this upcoming weekend, and we'll see you Saturday.